Oh wow, they were full of nuggets once upon a time. See this old pack track, famous Rocky River. Big old shaft here. Look how high that is. Like the river and some more diggings. Old wetsuits from back in the 80s when they used to dredge down here on the Rocky. Look at this. Gold nugget out of the bench of the river over there. Could you imagine digging a 243 ounce, 7 kilo? So it runs for 150 meters through this hill. Monster of an engineering feat. Mcginty dug out a 7 kilo. The ground down through here on the side of the river's been hydraulically sluiced. Wild steep country. Look at that mighty white river in all its glory. This country, they were tough old coots those old times.
Long before land exploration of Tasmania's west coast, the early mariners, while passing along the rugged coastline between Corinna and Sandy Cape, noted how the erratic behaviour of their compasses suggested that a large mineral field may exist not far inland. In 1872, a young 22-year-old Charles Sprent was appointed surveyor of the Wynyard and northwest region of Tasmania. His timing was precise, as James Philosopher Smith had just discovered the rich tin deposits of the Mt Bischoff area. One of Sprent's first assignments was to officially survey Smith's lease, which then ultimately led to Sprent's keen interest in the geology and mineral potential of Tasmania's west coast. In February 1877, Sprent and his four-man team were exploring the thickly forested banks of the Savage River. He says, "We began noticing pebbles of iron ore. We traced the gullies up and soon came to an immense quantity, thousands of tons, strewing the ground." It was soon after that Sprent discovered gold in the White River, which ultimately led to the small gold rush that began in the Corinna area. The gold rush was short-lived, and only a few, selected by chance, ever uncovered the area's rich potential. An Irishman by the name of James Mcginty and his friend Jimmy Griffin managed to uncover 3 of Tasmania's largest gold nuggets. My mission today is to head back to these forgotten places and bring back to life the stories of old.
So it's a couple of k's down this old four-wheel drive track down to the White River. I'd drive down, but it's really washed out in spot, and I don't think my little Subaru would be able to handle some of these big ruts. These are the tame ones. I've marked out all the historic locations for us today. All the red markers there are all the places I want to visit, talk to you guys about some of the history of this place. I haven't been to all these locations yet, so I'm excited to see what's hiding out in the old bush here. She's a nice steep drop in. It's an old trench here, but there's also some junk that the people in the 80s left. There's old wetsuits from back in the 80s when they used to dredge down here on the Rocky. Just been left on the bank. Dredging became illegal back then, and yeah, they've just left all their gear and left the area, I guess. But yeah, this is just down here is where the Mcginty nuggets were found, and yeah, hence why they would have wanted to dredge around this area back in the 80s. Wow, ain't it pretty too? What a location to find a 7 kilo, a 4 kilo and a 1 kilo gold nugget.
In February of 1883, James Mcginty, while working alongside his 2 mining partners D. Neal and T. Richards, unearthed a whopping 243 ounce gold nugget.
So the actual location marking on MRT is just up here on this inside bend.
The party buried the nugget nearby and continued working for another week, when suddenly they struck another huge gold nugget weighing in at 1 kilogram.
You wouldn't leave a spot unturned where you find a 7 kilo nugget. Little shaft there. Wonder if that was the one. Huge amount of digging up here, look. Wow. Another water race there by the looks of it, wraps around. This whole bench on the side of the river has been lifted, trenched, water raced. Another test pit just down in there.
Other prospectors working on the Rocky River claims at the time were Jimmy Griffin and John Watson, who approached Mcginty in his hut one night. Mcginty told them that he was leaving in the morning, and he said, "You can have our claim." Griffin and Watson replied, "Your claim's no better than the one we have." Mcginty had kept his secret well, and he replied to the gentleman, "Oh well, we have a bit of gold," said Mcginty. "We will show it to you." Then out of the dark room of the hut was dragged the famous nugget, along with other nuggets and gold to the value of £6,000. As they were showing the gold to Griffin, he replied, "Isey Mac, isey, me eyes is leaving me head." And then the rush to the Rocky River took place. Griffin and Watson continued to find excellent shows of gold on Mcginty's old claim, and a couple of months later they dug up another whopping 4-kilogram gold nugget.
So we are standing right on the MRT marking, which puts us on this water race. There's a bit of digging around the edges here, but anyone watching, I'd be very curious to know if anyone has more precise info on where the big nuggets came from. But could you imagine digging a 243 ounce, 7 kilo gold nugget out of this river bench? I wonder how many times Mcginty had his lunch here on this rock as well. The mighty White River in all its glory. This is where the river takes a huge big loop. It's kind of a triangular shape. It goes right round and nearly backs back up onto itself. And just upstream a little bit, the old timers cut a diversion tunnel right through the hill so that they could divert the water through once again and work all the bedrock in the big loop of the river. We're going to take a closer look at that. I think it's still open on the other side. Bit of an old pack track just along the side here. Look at this. Couple of old jars sitting here. I wonder if they were full of nuggets once upon a time. Wild steep country, look at that. You'd never know this tunnel was down here. It's been swallowed up by nature. Righto. What do we got? Oh wow. Look at this. It's a monster of an engineering feat. Look how high that is. Like, that's 30-40 meters they've dug out there. Perhaps that may have collapsed, I'm not sure. There's a lot of material here, but look at the size of this adit, this tunnel. That's huge. Oh! Just crazy. So it runs for 150 meters through this hill. I'd say that that's standing about 12 to 13 foot high. This was bored through in 1931. It allowed them to work the riverbed, the big loop in the White River. You can see this old pack track running along the side of the White River. This runs down to the Rocky. Okay, we've got the famous Rocky River and its confluence with the White River just down there. This river's always been high on my list as one of the most beautiful in Tasmania. I want to get down to the Tarry mine, Tarry's north face and south face, which was all hydraulically sluiced. It's the location where the old bucket dredge was brought up from Corinna. I haven't been down to the Tarry's mine, so I'm not sure if there's a track or anything. So it might be a bit of off-road bashing by the looks of things. I'll set my GPS going so I don't do anything silly. I'd imagine they would have had a little pack track continuing on, but I'm not sure. Yeah, look, there's a little orange ribbon. So I'm guessing it's up this way. Track didn't last long. Oh. That just snapped. Oh, here we go. Another ribbon, some more diggings. I'll have to be careful, there'll be old shafts everywhere out here. I've lost the track again. Might be going too far inland. Just spotted a pink ribbon up here. Well, I think I'm following the track vaguely, but doesn't look like there's been anyone down here in a very long time. It's just everything's overgrown. I can't really see where anyone's been. It definitely looks like all this material's been worked and washed away from the bank of the river. And I'm still quite a ways up from the actual Tarry's mine, so I reckon they worked quite a ways along the river, along the White River. So beautiful today, the sun's out now. Look at that. Foot off the ground. Impaling country. Yeah, very hard to tell, but this has all been worked. That's deep. I always seem to find myself in tricky situations. And flow. Alright, so this is the location where they brought the old bucket dredge right up from Corinna. 20 k's up from up the Pieman River and then up this White River to the location here, which is just below the junction of the Rocky River further upstream. The buckets on the dredge were 3 foot wide. There were 12 to 14 buckets on this old dredge, and it could work 20 foot into the gravels right down into the schist of the bedrock. The only thing that pulled them up on a regular was these large logs that were stuck in the river gravels, and that constantly slowed them down. They worked along the White here for 2 years, from 1901 to 1903, and it was another failure. They only got about 39 ounces of gold, and then there was unrecorded amounts of osmiridium and tin once again. So just crazy what the lengths they went to, the conditions they would have been in being so remote. It's just making my way back along the banks, the hills of the river, and this big old shaft here. I don't know how deep it is, but I don't really want to know. Little rectangular cut one. Yeah. Cross the Rocky and get back up the hill on the other side. Alright, we've made it to the old water race. You can see this cutout running all the way along. This thing's phenomenal because it just blows my mind that this old race runs for k's along the Rocky River, way up in the hills. The river's literally, I don't know, maybe 150 or more meters right down this hill, and somehow they get the physics right to run these old races right round the tops of the hills. all this water was fed down closer to the White River down below. It gave them the pressure they needed for the hydraulic workings. I'm going to be walking along it for about a K or so. Yeah, look at it wrapping around through the craziest country. They were tough old coots, those old timers. 1931 or 32 this race was put in. Alright, so I've got marked above this water race the saw pit load, which is an old adit somewhere up above the hill. We're fairly close, and I just noticed this bank here looks pretty clear, like it's had a fair bit of foot traffic, so I might just go for a walk and see if we can find that. I've never had a look at that closely, so I'm not sure if it's still an open adit or not. I've tried to mark these spots as accurately as possible. It's whether they are listed on the MRT website accurately as well, I guess. Maybe others that have been here will know where it's located. Am I close? It's pretty open country, so if it's still an open adit, it should stand out pretty well. Actually, what's that over there? It tricked me. It's just where a big tree had roots had fallen away. Well, I'm right on it now. I'm not seeing it. There's a lot of what looks like diggings. The bank's all pulled away, but I don't think so. It was a adit that went in for quite a ways, and yeah, they never found a lot of gold in it. There was only traces of AU within the ore. And once again, it left them wondering. The only one that had any real success down here was Mcginty and Jimmy Griffin. They were the early prospectors in this area, but every other party that tried in the 30s and later on weren't successful. Not until about the 80s when the modern day dredging started, and I know a lot of gold was won by those more modern day prospectors. I'm not sure where the saw pit adit is. If anyone watching knows where it is, I'm sure there's a few that have been here. Does it still exist? Is it an open adit? So I'd planned to take you guys further up the Rocky River. There's some old workings on the side of the river where they stacked up all the rocks and worked the bedrock beneath. But I'm pretty short on time. It's pretty late in the afternoon and it's quite a ways up there, so I'm going to call it a day. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's little history video. Yeah, make sure you give it a like and drop some comments below. The engagement, the likes and the comments help to promote the video, so it helps me out dramatically, and more people will be reached if you do that for me. So yeah, let me know what you thought, if you liked it or you didn't like it. But yeah, until next time, hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you all then.